Chester County Junior High School, what's going on? I hope you guys are doing well today. My name is Maurice Williams. I am a professor at the university here, the local university, Freed-Hardeman University. And I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time, just a few minutes, to chat with you about why it is important for us to appreciate, to understand, and to learn about Black history in our country. Is anybody taking the time to understand or figure out why we have to have a month that's dedicated to African Americans? If you do research on it, then you'll come to understand that traditionally, our country has not done a very good job of telling the story of people who look like me. Now, that's not to say that we haven't told some of the story, but we haven't told all of the story. Usually the story that we hear is some truths about slavery. We'll hear a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. We'll hear about Rosa Parks. Now that Barack Obama was the president, we know about him. And perhaps we've been told about Malcolm X. And all those individuals were great. They are great with respect to the things that they did. Some of them, the things that they continue to do with respect to Mr. Barack Obama. But they're not the only individuals in our country over the years that have contributed greatly to our society. We know a lot about the majority that have been in this country. So we know a lot about Abraham Lincoln. We know a lot about George Washington. We know a lot about Ben Franklin and others. But if I were to mention these names to you, would you know anything about them? There's a group of individuals called the Black Fives. Have you heard of them? There's a gentleman by the name of Art Shell. Have you heard of him? There's another gentleman by the name of Scott Joplin. Have you heard of him? What about Maya Jamison or Wilma Rudolph? Have you heard of them? Have you heard of a gentleman by the name of Arthur Ashe? And the list goes on and on and on. Have you heard of the name of Charles Drew? And even from a local standpoint, with some of the history here in our city, in our small town of Henderson, have you ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Marshall Keeble? Now, these individuals, with respect to what they have done, they should be household names, like a George Washington or like a Ben Franklin, but they're not, for whatever the reason may be. The reason being is because traditionally there has been a covering of African American history within our country. They'll give you a little sprinkle here and a little sprinkle there. But traditionally, it's as if we were nobody. We came over on a boat and we did very little for this country. Some would even say that the success of our country was built on our backs, but you won't read about that in a history book. So that's why it is important for you, whoever is watching this video, it is important for you to take the time to research those individual names that I gave you. I think this is being recorded. I know it's being recorded, and hopefully you'll be able to watch it again. Go back and research those names, and I want you to reach out to me. Look me up here at Freed-Hardeman, and I want you to say, Mr. Williams, I listened to your video, and I took to heart what you said, and I went back and I researched some of these individuals, and here's what I found out about them. I was not aware of it, and I appreciate everything that you've done. As a matter of fact, you caused me to research other African Americans and what they've done throughout the fields of sports, in our medicine, in American medicine, in our entertainment industry, whether it's arts or whether it's music, in government, in finance. Have you ever heard of an HBCU? Do those four letters ring a bell to you? If they don't, they should. An HBCU stands for a historically Black college or university. And those were started because People who look like me, were not allowed to enter universities that were predominantly Caucasian just because of the color of our skin. Have you heard of fraternities and sororities or social clubs? Very popular, very prominent on college campuses. As a matter of fact, here at Freed-Hardeman University, there are social clubs. But did you know, at one point in time, people who looked like me were not allowed? Now, we could serve them things like tea and crumpets, or we could serve them their dinner, but we were not allowed to participate in the group in and of itself. So we went off and we started our own. And those are called historically African-American sororities and fraternities, or what we call the NPHC, the National Panhellenic Council. There's so much history amongst African Americans in this country, and a lot of us don't know about it from a country standpoint. I recently asked a group of people if they heard of people I thought they would have heard of, very popular people. Charles Drew, very prominent in blood transfusions, very prominent in blood banks, and they had not heard of him. They had not heard of him. They actually named the medical school after him in Los Angeles. And you know what he died from? He died, even though he was very instrumental in this, but because of the color of his skin, they would not give him a blood transfusion, and he died from that. This is stuff we should know. This should be taught on a regular basis. And I don't think it's being taught across the United States. From my last research, states have autonomy when it comes to, they can kind of pick and choose what curriculum they want to teach to individuals like yourselves. So my encouragement to you is don't wait for your teachers. No disrespect to teachers. I'm a teacher. I love teachers, but take it upon yourself. I know you guys have cell phones. I know you know how to Google. So take advantage of that during this month and do some research on these individuals. Do some research with respect to what African Americans have done for this great state that we live in. And that's all I have for you guys today. I look forward to meeting you perhaps one day soon. If you're ever on campus or if you ever see me in town, let me know you watched this video, and I hope it was helpful for you. You guys take care.
When the best of me is barely breathing, when I'm not somebody I believe in, hold on to me. When I miss the light, the night is stolen. When I'm slamming all the doors you've opened, hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me when it's too dark to see you. When I am sure I've reached the end. Hold on to me when I forget I need you. When I let go, hold me again. When I don't feel like I'm worth defending, and I'm tired of all my pretending, hold on to me. When I start to break in desperation, underneath the weight of expectation, hold on to me. Hold on to me. Hold on to me when it's too dark to see you. When I am sure I've reached the end. Hold on to me when I forget No, nobody loves me better. Hold on to me. Hold on to me.
It's by Paul Dunbar. We wear the mask that grins and lies, that hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouthy married subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet, and long the mile, but let the world dream otherwise as we wear the mask.
Hi, Chester County Junior High. My name is Letitia Williams, and I am here today to tell you 3 reasons why learning Black history is important. The first reason is representation. A lot of times we form stereotypes or biases unconsciously, maybe due to our family, our environment, TV and movies, social media, radio, what have you. And because of that, we don't learn fully about a group the way we should. And that applies to Black history. It's important to see people who don't look like you, who have made good contributions to our country, who have helped get things the way that they are in a good way in our country. And if we don't learn about those things, if we don't see people doing those good things, and a lot of times those stereotypes and biases will take over. The second reason is voices. We need to know what people who live through these experiences in history have to say about it. And a lot of times when you're reading a history textbook, you only get snippets of what happened, snippets of what the successes were and what the failures were. But when you read firsthand accounts, that's really important to giving you a full picture of what our history in this country is all about. And you have to read firsthand accounts from those who we hear about all the time in the history books and from those that we don't. And so in that way, learning about Black history is very important, because then we get all these stories that give us a fuller account of how the history of this country really is. The third reason is positive change. If we don't know our history, we can't make positive change. And if we don't know about all the people who influenced our history, even those who look like me, then we won't know how to make positive changes in the future that last. And that's one of the things that you guys are going to do as you grow up. You are going to be responsible for making some of those positive changes in our country. And if you know a full history of this country, the stories of people we don't hear about all the time, then you can do better in finding out how we cannot repeat atrocities and terrible things that have happened in our history. We can move forward and have positive change that supports everyone in our country, no matter what we look like. So I hope you guys will take those 3 points into consideration, that you'll go out and do your research, that you'll learn more, that you'll read more, and that you will get a well-rounded view of the history of our country.
Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, to Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta King. As a young boy, Dr. King lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and attended school at Atlanta Public School District. After his time in the Atlantic Public School District, Dr. King went on to attend Boston College at the age of 15. Dr. King had many accomplishments during his life. One of his accomplishments later became known as the great civil rights activist who led demonstrations and speeches. His most notable speeches are "I Have a Dream" and "I Am a Man," to promote unity and equality among all races. Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech is one of the most notable and quoted speeches because of his goal of unity, love, and equality for all. Dr. King lived the simple American life with his wife, Curtis Scott King, and was assassinated by James Earl Ray on the second floor balcony of the Lorraine Motel of Memphis, Tennessee, room 306. He is honored in states such as Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. He has been lauded for his passion and work for unity, love, and equality for all. I have a dream.
This is the undefeated. We have it up here. Yes. Hello out there. Glad you all could join us. If you have the book, you can follow along in your text, or you can see it on the screen. This is for the unforgettable, the swift and sweet ones who hurdled history and opened a world of possible. The ones who survived America by any means necessary, and the ones who didn't. This is for the undeniable, the ones who scored with chains on one hand and faith in the other. This is for the unflappable, the sophisticated ones who box adversity and tackle vision, who shine their light for the world to see and don't stop till the break of dawn. This is for the unafraid, the audacious ones who carried the red, white, and weary blues on the battlefield to save an imperfect union. The righteous marching ones who sang, "We shall not be moved because Black lives matter." This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unspeakable. This is for the unlimited, unstoppable ones, the dreamers and the doers who swim across the big sea of our imagination and show us the majestic shores of the promised land. The Wilma Rudolphs, the Muhammad Alis, the Althea Gibsons, the Jesse Owenses, the Jordans and the LeBrons, the Serenas and the Cheryls, the Reese Whitleys and the undiscovered. This is for the unbelievable, the we real cool ones. This is for the unbending, the black as the night is beautiful ones. This is for the underdogs and the uncertain, the unspoken but no longer untitled. This is for the undefeated. This is for the undefeated. This is for you and you and you, Jamie, and you, Imogen. This is for you. This is for us.
Even though we are all one, we each have our own identity. As one of the most influential individuals, Martin Luther King once said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or we will perish as fools." Each and every American is living freely in America. Now we must come to peace with each other. Because of our previous generations, we can now live freely. Just 50 years ago, many Americans' hearts were filled with hatred and darkness, causing trauma in many of our ancestors' lives. Inequality has been a part of our land for thousands of years. In 1619, an armed ship brought slaves ashore to the British colony of Jamestown, Virginia. Slaves were mistreated, manipulated, and tortured. Something so sickening was considered legal until December 18, 1865, when the 13th Amendment was introduced. When I speak upon equality, I'm not just speaking about African Americans, because at one point in our life, we have all faced some type of injustice, no matter what gender, race, or background we've come from. For years, women were seen as below men. We couldn't be dominant and stand our own position in society like men could for many years. We also couldn't vote and hold the positions men could. For a very long time, nothing was made out of this unfair treatment. Most of the conflict around this topic erupted in the 1840s, lasting all the way up until the 1920s, when the 19th Amendment assured all American women the right to vote. The purpose of this speech today is not to focus on the depressing parts in our country's history, but to realize that our country has made progress since then and should continue to do so we can all live in a country filled with happiness, positive vibes, and peace in a place we call home.
Harmony. And I'm going to talk about something that changed the course of history, the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement was the struggle for justice and equality for African Americans. The Civil Rights Movement is important because it broke the pattern of public places being segregated by race. It was successful because people were protesting for equal rights without using violence. Millions of African Americans took to the streets for peaceful protest as well as taking actions on civil disobedience. One of the major events in civil rights movement was the Montgomery bus boycott because it began social change during the movement. The reason the movement happened was because African Americans wanted not just to be equal, but also have the right to vote, the right to a fair trial, the right to government services, the right to public education, and the right to public facilities. Without many African Americans fighting for everyone to be equal, many of us wouldn't be able to go to the places we're able to go to today. The civil rights movement helped end segregation in public places and ban employment discrimination based on race. This is why the civil rights movement is important. Thank you.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Think that your mind will let yourself be free. Let's go back, let's go way, all the way back. If I don't even know you, could have been too much noise. Just now. I ain't no psychiatrist, ain't no doctor with a degree, but it don't take much time to see what you're doing to me. You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Go ahead and let yourself be free. Oh, freedom, freedom, yeah, freedom, yeah, freedom, 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 yeah, freedom, yeah, freedom.
In early 1828, Sojourner Truth approached the grand jury of Kingston, New York. She had no experience with the legal system, no money, and no power in the eyes of the court. Ignoring the jury's scorn, Truth said she was there to fight for custody of her 5-year-old son, Peter, who'd been illegally sold to an enslaver in Alabama. As the trial played out over the next several months, Truth raised funds, strategized with lawyers, and held her faith. Finally, in the spring of 1828, Peter was returned to her care, but Truth's work was far from over. She would dedicate the rest of her life to pursuing justice and spiritual understanding. Truth was born into slavery as Isabella Baumfree in the late 18th century in Ulster County, New York. Although New York State had announced the abolition of slavery in 1799, the Emancipation Act was gradual. Those who were currently enslaved were forced to serve a period of indentured servitude until their mid-20s. Throughout this period, enslavers repeatedly sold Baumfree, tearing her from her loved ones. Often, she was explicitly prevented from pursuing new relationships. Eventually, she married an enslaved man named Thomas, with whom she had 3 children. She was desperate to keep her new family together, but the slow progress of abolition threatened this hope. Baumfree's enslaver, John Dumont, had promised to free her by 1826. When he failed to keep his word, Baumfree fled for her safety. During the escape, she was only able to rescue her youngest daughter, Sophia, while her other children remained in bondage. It would be 2 years before she regained custody of Peter. After that, she would wait another 2 years before she saw any of her other children. During this time, Baumfree found solace in her faith and became increasingly dedicated to religious reflection. After settling in Kingston, New York, she joined a Methodist community that shared her political views. She continued her practice of speaking aloud to God in private, and one night, her evening prayers took on even more sacred significance. Baumfree claimed to hear the voice of God, telling her to leave Kingston and share her holy message with others. Though she never learned to read or write, Baumfree became known as an electrifying orator whose speeches drew on biblical references, spiritual ideals, and her experience of slavery. Her sermons denounced the oppression of African Americans and women in general, and became prominent in campaigns for both abolition and women's rights. In 1843, she renamed herself Sojourner Truth and embarked on a legendary speaking tour. Truth saw her journey as a mission from God. Her faith often led her to the nation's most hostile regions, where she spoke to bigoted audiences as the only Black woman in the crowd. Truth was confident God would protect her, but some crowds responded to her bravery with violence. During one of her sermons, a mob of white men threatened to set fire to the tent where she was speaking. In her memoir, Truth recalled steeling herself to confront them. Have I not faith enough to go out and quell that mob? I felt as if I had 3 hearts, and that they were so large my body could hardly hold them. She placated the men with song and prayer until they had no desire to harm her. Truth's speeches impacted thousands of people in communities across the nation, but her activism went far beyond public speaking. During the Civil War, she became involved with the Union Army, recruiting soldiers and organizing supplies for Black troops. Her work was so well regarded that she was invited to meet President Lincoln. She took the occasion to argue that all formerly enslaved people should be granted land by the government. Truth continued to travel and speak well into her 80s. Until her death in 1883, she remained an outspoken critic who fought for her right to be heard in a hostile world. As Truth once said, "I feel safe even in the midst of my enemies, for the truth is powerful and will prevail."